again?
Normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias, okay.
Because I feel that you're still seeing an awful lot of that in the way that politicians and press are treating what's going on in America. As I say, Angela Rayner refusing to fucking give her opinion on what's going on, when clearly her opinion is incredibly fucking dangerous. But there's just this talking about respecting the office and things like that. That respect of the office and the way everything is, this is the way we do it and this is the way we talk about it, makes it more difficult for people to go, fucking look at it.
Do you think it's to do with the fact that a lot of people, when they want to become politicians, they watch politicians on the news when they were kids? It was like, oh, I could quite like to be Prime Minister, I'd quite like to be that. And now they're growing up and it's like, congratulations, you're a world leader imminently before World War III. Probably wasn't how you saw this going. Well, but maybe you have to adapt to your direction now,
It might be a feeling like don't shout fire in a movie.
Yeah.
In a theatre, kind of.
I mean, there are Americans who are making plans to leave the country because they fear that they'll be persecuted. And I can completely understand that. And what I wonder is why more of them aren't. And it's the same thing as talking about, the Jewish people in Germany in the 1930s. Loads of them left. And that was actually what the Nazis ideally wanted. They wanted them to go. And it was encouraged for a while before it was prevented. But a lot of people don't want to look at how bad the thing is. So there's this, you think, well, God, that sounds terrible. But it won't be that bad. It won't happen here. It can't happen here. It isn't happening here. Why am I in jail? And that's we're at that stage now where a few people are really going, oh, fuck, we do actually need to shout fire because the cinema is in fact on fire. And a lot of people are like, no, it's not on fire. It's just a wee bit of smoke. It's just a wee bit of smoke. It'll be okay. We can put the fire out. We can do this. No, it's on fire. Yeah. It is on fire. And people don't want to confront that. And so the way the press is talking about things, the way talking heads are talking about things, it's all this thing of they're all trying to pretend. They're not all trying to pretend, but a lot of them are still trying to pretend that there might be some strategy to what Trump is doing, or that, well, maybe he really does just want peace. He doesn't fucking want peace. He doesn't want the P-tape released. It doesn't even matter if there's a P-tape or not. There's stuff about whether or not he's a Russian fucking agent. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It wouldn't look any different if he definitely was. What he's doing looks exactly what it would look like if he was. So it doesn't matter whether he is or not, because he effectively is, because look at what we're seeing.
Yeah, regardless of what resides in his heart of hearts, champagne balls have been getting popped in the Kremlin day and night over the last week.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. And there are some European leaders who are stepping up to the plate and saying what needs to be said. Keir Starmer is in a difficult position because we are not in the EU. We have a special relationship, quote unquote, with America that is clearly not it's not worth a fuck to the Americans. So I think our position is weakened because we are not part of that bloc, and that was intentional. It was intentional by the Russians, and you gobbled up the propaganda like the sweaty little gibbons that you are, and you voted with Vlad, and this is what's happened. Now, it's fine. It's fine. We're very angry at you that you did that, but we have an opportunity now to recognise what's going on, step up to the plate, talk about it as a nation, have big boy conversations, and talk about maybe the best strategy for us for our national defence is to be back in the EU, because Keir Starmer did the whole thing where he rallied the European leaders and got a nice photo op, and that was great. And then the leaders of the EU all had a meeting to discuss what's going to happen next in Ukraine, and we were not invited to the table.
Now would be a really good time for the UK press to fucking find wherever their sexual organs are of whatever gender and run some stories about the fact that Nigel Farage was the one that was seen going into the fucking embassy to hand over material that got leaked by WikiLeaks later that day that fucking damaged the Democrats in 2016. Can we talk about how long this has been going on?
BBC will...
Can somebody other than Carol Cadwallader and Byline fucking Times talk about what has been going on here?
BBC will never do it because he's, one player in that. But
also because they are fucking responsible.
This is where I was going with it. I was saying that you've got, with someone that is likely going to be probably exposed as a indirect to direct Russian asset, and you were punting him. That's what's. I think there's, given even just going right back to like Nick Griffin being platformed on Question Time, I think there's a lot of questions to be asked around what's been going on at the BBC with some of this stuff. You were right on the money where you're like, they were so bad at covering the independent stuff, it pushed a load of viewers onto RT. There's a lot of moving parts there that I'm quite curious about, kind of how much they maybe not have known. But it's an embarrassment. It's like for them to come forward and say that, they would have to. For me to get their credibility back, there's so much of an admittance of wrongdoing and failure that would be required. And Westminster's kind of the same way. We talked about this with Trump, sort of desecrating the office. Like now that office is not worthy of your respect. We don't have to respect the White House because of what it is now. And I feel that's where the BBC, Westminster, a lot of these institutions, due to the fact that they've been knowingly or unknowingly infiltrated, they've been, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not kind of corrupted, but compromised might be a word that could be used. I think there needs to be an acknowledgement of that. And really, if you go back to the very beginning of this podcast and our time on Twitter, like we've kind of been documenting this slow creep. And we've been, we were talking about seeing fire. It's more like we're in the front row of the cinema going, Matt Vlad kid's coming with some matches. And we're kind of waiting for, I bet an usher's going to come and get that kid, right? They're not going to let start lighting up.
I remember having conversations with kind of, people in the Yes movement where they were, I'd be trying to talk to them about how poisonous and dangerous RT was. Oh, well, I'd sooner trust Putin than fucking David Cameron. Right, well, then you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? I think you're a fucking idiot. Because as much as I don't like David Cameron, I don't actually think he's ever poisoned anybody with nerve agents on UK soil. Just to pick a fucking instance, but
might have fucked a pig though, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's shit or shitter, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
I've been going on about this for nearly fucking 10 years now, and
you have been going on about it for 10 years.
Yes, and at the time, I think a lot of people I know thought that I was fucking mentally obsessed with Russia. It's like, but it wasn't like, can you not fucking see? Fucking look at it. It's all right there. It's always been there. And the fall of, the scales falling from my eyes over like WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and fucking Edward Snowden and stuff like that. Because I bought into that. And so when I saw it for what it was, I was really, really annoyed and ashamed with myself for having bought into it. But
we all talked about that. It's a sort of, sorry, Laura, because you weren't here at that time, but that's a connecting tissue with the three of us, because we all spoke about, Free and I kind of came into politics or paying attention to it from a more of a kind of, burn it all down, I think is actually your words. We came in from a slightly more libertarian angle, and therefore we started to kind of go down, not rabbit holes per se, but we're sort of testing the waters. We're going down different pipes and seeing what's there. And we all kind of rattled into Alex Jones and people like that at some point. But critically, we sat it for a bit and went, wait a minute. And then we pulled back. But even that flutter or just having a look was enough to make ourselves feel, I don't know, responsible, maybe too strong a word, but like something that like, that's got me a wee bit, and I'm quite clever, so dumb people will definitely get caught by this.
Exactly. And I mean, the thing is, it's not untrue that the fucking American security agencies do fucking terrible things, that the CIA has fucking toppled governments if they didn't like it, that they've smuggled drugs. Yeah, interestingly, like Lockerbie's my latest fucking rabbit hole. I'm sorry, we're going to talk about that at some point. But there's strong evidence that the reason the Americans were so fucking against was so intent on blaming Libya when Libya clearly had fucking nothing to do with it, was because actually they had been using that flight, not necessarily that particular one, but they had been using that fucking route to smuggle drugs. And they got somebody whose bags were getting omitted from screening. And so when that flight went down, their first thought was, oh, fuck, is that us? Did we cause that? And that's the cock-up conspiracy. So it's not like a big conspiracy. It's always that little fucking conspiracy of convenience of, oh, we think that might be us. So they're all over it really early doors and making sure there's
also
stuff.
Yeah, we can't sidebar too far into this, but obviously it was intended to explode over the Atlantic, in which case if it had been successful, it would just have been another MH370. We just wouldn't know. And that's the thing. It's like it was never intended to be blown up.
No, that's not true.
So it's I thought that was quite well established.
No, well this is the problem.
Okay, where does that come from?
Okay, so the narrative from the Americans was that the bomb went on in Malta on a completely unrelated flight, and then the Pan Am flight was a 3-stage flight. It went from Frankfurt to London to I think it's New York, and then there was a third bit that went up to I think Detroit. So it's just like 3 flight. And they said that this was a long timer, and then that it was in that was the intention. But actually, it went off in the window that suggests it was a barometric timer, and it had gone on in Heathrow. So there's a whole load of stuff about this, and it's incredible.
It was too much to get into.
It was
influencing at that time though.
Because
I thought it was a kind of
it's not to do with, it was a revenge thing for the Iranian government because the Iranians had a passenger jet. This is what no one talks about. The Iranians had a passenger jet shot down by the Americans.
But this is where I was going with this. I thought it was a revenge attack by the Iranians for that.
Yeah.
And I thought basically this was one of these kind of plausible deniability things,
where
basically it was going to be somebody in Iran would make a quiet phone call to the Pentagon and go, just to let you know, yeah, we did that, that's for that, and now we call it even Stevens and we stop.
Well,
and then the idea would be, no, it wasn't us because you have further evidence and you can't find her.
Triage. Firstly, if it is the Iranians, and it fucking was, they fucking transferred money the next day to the Palestinian Liberation fucking, it's told Judean People's Front. It was a splinter of the fucking Palestinian Liberation Front. But they transferred money to them the next fucking day. But yeah, these barometric timers, basically they go off something like 35 to 40 minutes after they hit a certain barometric a certain level of air pressure. So in order for it to do the damage it had to do, it had to be in a certain place in the plane hold. There's no way you could possibly have organised that if it had been through another flight and it was just going through normal luggage. Whereas as it is, there was a couple of cases that just turned up in Heathrow, not quite kind of accounted for by anybody. And they got put in a particular place and so there must have been somebody on the inside at Heathrow who knew how that worked. However, Heathrow Airport at the time had something like, it had hundreds of passes that had never been passed back in. Anybody could get a fucking airside, and there was a fucking door that got broken into that fucking day before that plane went off in Heathrow. Somebody fucking, there was literally a fucking a padlock broken off between the reception and the fucking airside.
I knew about most of that. It was just a bit where you said about the I always taken it that it was a timer based bomb. I didn't know.
Well, it was environmental timer, and so
wherever the timer begins after a certain point.
Because if it goes up too early, then you don't actually do enough damage. But the bomb needs to be in a certain place, and so it's just these timers on the way they work. The timer can only last.
No, I always thought it was supposed to be a kind of plausible deniability. Is it basically like, yeah, actually that was us, so we know that's for that thing. I'll be fucking
but
stopped
the Americans
here.
did not want it being. They did not want it being put about that it was as a direct result
of their attack. That's
their attack.
I thought that Lockerbie existed in a space where that was not commonly accepted. But I thought that
the first a year or so of the investigation, it was put firmly on the Iranians because everybody knew about this.
And this is what I mean. I thought that that it was sort of understood that we just knew that was the Americans being at it, for lack of better words. So I thought that's where I thought it.
So the Americans still absolutely fucking stick to that narrative.
But anyway, we'll come back and do Lockerbie.
So anyway,
the point.
Sorry. The point is the American security services have done all sorts of terrible things, and leaks about what the NSA were up to with data gathering, were warranted and all the rest of it. And so it was very, very easy. That was a big, lovely fucking slice of buttery toast with raspberry jam on it for me to go nom, 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 nom. And I fucking loved it. And then the realization that actually really dangerous things that should have been kept secret are being, that no scrutiny is being placed on what is released, that people are dying because of some of those leaks, that the amount of damage done to Western democracy and diplomacy by the release of diplomatic cables. And you realize, actually, as much as I want to know this stuff, maybe I have to say, realistically, there are things that I shouldn't know. There's things that nobody should know because the world turns on white lies.
Mm-hmm. Catastrophic disclosure.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
What the MAGA lot, they all love all kind of conspiracies, and they've got all these great ideas about what will happen once all this stuff is released to the public.
When we get the codes for those Jewish space lasers.
And they promised that they were going to release the Epstein files.
Oh, aye.
And as it turned out, they released like a few pages, but only to their own guys, like the reporters that they trusted.
And I mean, how many photos are there of Trump with Epstein?
That's good. So we see their own guys. It's like, yeah, that's you, that is you. You're on the list.
So yeah. Why is the T section of the missing?
We seem to skip from S to U.
I think in later years, Trump had probably distanced himself quite a bit from Epstein. I think it is. I know for a fact that Elon Musk's brother met his wife through Epstein. That was an Epstein arrangement. That's a fact.
Wow.
There are a lot of. I mean, I think the Clintons' relationship with Trump,
Jesus Christ! Yes.
Their friendship with Epstein lasted longer than Trump's did. Trump had already distanced himself at that point.
Is that
Trump
what
said? Trump says Trump was asked, "Will you release the files on the JFK assassination?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll release all them." Would you release the files on something else? Yeah, I'll release them. Would you release the files on Epstein? And he went, yeah, well, maybe.
Oh, look, a squirrel.
But even, probably not. I might not release those ones because you see, there's lots of lies in there as well, which might hurt people that shouldn't really be hurt because like a lot of his lies as well. So like I might not release that because there will be a lot of lies.
So he's definitely seen it though. So he's definitely read it, so he knows.
Yeah, I mean,
he wished Ghislaine Maxwell well while she was in fucking jail.
But I think that's just more to do with Trump being sick and not paying any attention to anything outside of himself.
Just to come back briefly on the Clinton thing, though, I think that's the moment that Hillary lost the election.
She lost the election because she was least like.
Will that be? We'll say the moments, but this is I think the solidification, because they were doing the whole like Hillary's a bitch and you lock her up and all this other stuff, and yeah, okay, fair enough. But the bit on the debate where he walked out to the front of the stage, and I think he pointed directly at like a bill up in the rafters, and it was like the accusers. And obviously it was so well known that this guy was a sleaze, Monica Lewinsky and all that as well. And it was just that moment of Trump is the worst person on earth, but you've put up the most ill-equipped opposition. And I just think that if it had been anybody else, and I guess there'd be not to defend her, because believe me, I'm not. You know, it was her husband that had caused that issue.
Like, can we just be clear on the fact that to a certain extent she is the victim of that as well? Although she could have fucking kicked his ass out.
Yes, but I think that
staying together for the sake of the money.
It's inherently dislikable as Hillary Clinton is. She is inherently dislikable. That was, I think, the kind of the clinch, where it was that thing he could point to. So all the other kind of baloney he was coming out with, it was like the one bit of truth that justified all the nonsense. And I remember he did it so effectively. Like, it was again my pro wrestling brain going on and going, oh, it's just that's the promo. That's the other action he's winning.
We do have to give him credit for, although I have to say I think his powers are greatly diminished now. I mean, he really, really is in like mental cognitive.
Yeah. He's lost the sauce. He's not got it anymore.
He just gets so confused. I mean, the other day I saw a clip of him being asked, because there's now discussion that they might revoke the refugee status of Ukrainian refugees in America, and he's being and their status is TPS status. I don't actually know what that stands for.
I thought you said GPS.
And he's like, what, GPS? Yes, they're worried about the GPS status of Ukrainian refugees. You mad old cunt.
He had not a
fucking clue about it at all. He did not know, and he couldn't fucking. And I'm absolutely convinced. I don't think he can't read. Obviously, he can fucking read, but I think he needs specs and won't wear them, and that's why he can't fucking read. He's so fucking vain.
Yeah, he won't wear his reading glasses in public, which is why I also think he's probably quite thick and just. I think he is aggressively incurious.
Yeah.
Which is such a disgusting trait to me.
He's one of those people that used to flush the head down the toilet of people that were better at him in school, which was everybody.
Yeah.
Well, we're on the subject of the Clintons. It's funny to think back on how much the MAGA lot made of Hillary's emails, considering just like how lax things are now.
Yeah.
You've got
Elon Musk has access to all your social security numbers and all your details, and he's just a private foreign citizen kicking about the government.
He came as an illegal. He did not have legal fucking status as when he came to the US.
Did he not have a gold card? Remember, that was the fucking idea, the gold cards.
It's so Russian oligarchs can get.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean. Yeah. Well, it won't just be the Russians, it'll be any other dodgy fucker that's got, a bank account,
We were talking earlier about, Putin has all the cards that Trump has given them to him, but it's not just that, like, their military campaign has died on its fucking arse. They've got 20 miles into Ukraine in 3 years and they're going no further. They've proven that they're not going to. It's also the Russian oligarchs are fucking furious at Putin because they're losing. Yeah, they're losing.
They can't go to the south of France on holiday anymore,
and they're furious, and that's where all Putin's power comes from. Is the wealth. He has lots of it, but that is the source of their power. They don't have any other geopolitical cards. They have money, and the Russian oligarchs are furious. So it's like, if we had just been normal in this situation and not the most abnormal, worst person, and completely capitulated to the Kremlin, then we could have really continued to put the pressure on and got a good outcome for the right side.
I know.
On the subject of Russia, before we move on, this whole thing, I keep hearing repeated that the reason that Russia invaded Ukraine is because Ukraine wanted to become part of NATO, and NATO were encroaching further to the east, and that's why they invaded. That's horseshit. That is not the annexed Crimea in 2014. This has nothing to do with also. Russia does not have any say over another sovereign nation's NATO structure.
They have run out of things to steal in Russia. That's why they invaded.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the further important point on that, because we all remember when it happened, well, in 2014, but the second time when they went in again. The first thought was, well, this could be it. This is like the Poland thing. He's not going to stop at Ukraine.
Well, that's exactly it. So if he's worried about NATO getting closer to his borders, he's going closer to NATO's borders, by the way.
The point is to come back to inaction, as in, like, that to me is like, the literal one for one here is, cause when you read about World War II, when Hitler goes into Poland, there's a bit of a chit chat. It's not like everyone just races in and goes, "I fucking stop." Whoa, that's enough of that shit. There's like so we know from history, when this happens, you're there day one, like, helping Ukraine. You're there with your own boots on the ground going, you're not getting in here, fuck off. And that's the end of it. Mercifully, because the Russian army were so shite, and to give the Ukrainians a lot of credit, they were excellent. They held them back. But the intention would have been to keep going. So I've not really understood the European and I guess the Biden administration, just the whole approach to this doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It's also, it's proof that NATO, the combined threat of that partnership absolutely worked, because the one country they invaded was the one that wasn't
in. Yeah, but this is the thing: Putin didn't invade Ukraine because it wanted to be in NATO. He invaded it because it wasn't.
Yeah.
And he could, because the last, and that's why he doesn't want European peacekeepers in there.
Yeah.
The last thing he wants is to actually go up against NATO, and you can always tell, because that fucking Vogon Lavrov, whatever he's saying, it's like opposite land. So, it's like there at the UN spouting shite, but it is always, NATO is in Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. If it was,
You would be...
fuck off.
But Nigel Farage has been repeating that Kremlin line unchallenged by anybody else in the British media. When Russian propaganda is being spoken on British airwaves, why the fuck are responsible journalists not immediately hammering back?
Because they are responsible journalists.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. We're in this timeline.
Yeah. We're in the timeline where Laura is still on BBC.
The Farage...
The worst.
Bad Laura.
The worst Laura.
The Farage thing of harking back constantly to World War II, this comes back to what we said previously about...
when we were fighting the Nazis.
Yes, he constantly harks back to it and mentions like Churchill all the time. But yeah,
Churchill would have jailed him.
So like when I don't even know how seriously it was floated, but he used to do a lot of scare points about any kind of European army is bad. And I'm kind of there, and maybe this is me being a bit too idealistic, going, like, what's the worst that could happen if there, what would it do? Like, and this, I guess, it was a bit off the back of Iraq, and there was a lot of kind of mistrust of like military and stuff like that at that time. But you're thinking, like, based on history, it probably does make sense due to the Russians that we do kind of like have a protective force, a peacekeeping unit, and the way that he just consistently hammered on that being a negative, that to me was really the earliest. But I can recall going, I think you're working for the baddies.
Yeah.
Because it seems so obviously, I couldn't get the logic on it. I could totally understand maybe the idea of it might have to work with branches. So the British military would kind of be like under the umbrella alongside, but there would be some kind of signed agreement. A bit NATO-ish.
Logic. The United States shouldn't have an army. Every state should have its.
This is what I mean. I couldn't work that out in my mind about how that just seemed like a very logical progression.
Because he's a traitor.
But the point is that was early on. That was like, you're talking between sort of 2012, 2014, somewhere in there, where I was like, I'd moved my position from this guy's just a kind of careerist at it sort of guy to that's such a weird thing to focus on. That's like a tell that there's a bigger, this is actually a much bigger political play is afoot here.
It's sort of playing into the fear, like, we've gone into Iraq as a partner of America, and sort of a fear of, well, that could happen again if, we join another sort of union or group and they drag us into something we don't want to be in. People are really reluctant for a long time about that kind of thing, but it's just such an oversimplification, because if there was ever going to be some kind of European army, it would be like a NATO. It wouldn't be like, what the British army is like. Yeah. It'd be a different thing. So,
yeah, there's been quite a lot of people who are still in the reform train saying things like, all right, well, off you go to the front line then. I'm like, motherfucker, do you think there is any part of me that is not willing to lay down my life to protect our democracy from an expansionist European dictator? If you recall, it's the best thing our country ever fucking did. He's been banging on about it for the last 100 years.
You've never fucking shut up about it.
It's the only thing we've ever done that was that could be seen as on the side of good, and now you're snarking.
It's also
go fuck yourself.
It's also that, and this is where I think all sides of the equation are sort of underestimating, as Putin did with the Ukrainians alone. It's like when World War II happened, like people were fucking ready to go. Like it was get a punch a Nazi, fucking great, sign me up. Like we're in exactly that boat now. Like you've got a whole bunch of disgruntled young people that are pretty pissed off about the general state of affairs right now. We're all kind of zeroing in on like who the problem is. So really, if you're Starmer, you're any main, like if the European Union just went, let's go, let's do it, I think a lot of people would be like down the recruitment office going like, actually getting to shoot Nazis and make the world a better place might be not fun, but like I'm kind of up for that actually. Let's go batter some Russians. And also because they're showing their arse so badly now because they've been crap, people might start to think, they could be quite easy to kill this lot, actually. That makes it more appealing.
That guy on a donkey.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm not a tough guy whatsoever, but one of the things I keep noticing is all these bad characters. I'm like, I reckon I could batter him, and that's already started.
I'm like, I think if it came to it, I could take you.
Yeah,
I think about it all the time. But genuinely, I think like those boys who went and fought in World War II, lots of them had already served in the First World War, which hadn't been that long before it. And there seems to just be this like attitudes. And I'm not a militaristic, like fucking here we go person. I would much rather there was no wars. But I'm also a realist, and I also think that there are some things that are actually worth fighting for, and stopping an expansionist dictator is one of those things.
Yeah, that's my position as well.
And
if you don't tackle an aggressor in a war of aggression, then you will be next.
I honestly think that giving these boys a purpose in life would be one of the best things that, if they survived, would be one of the best things that happened, because right now they're directionless and they're making it everybody else's fucking problem with their Andrew Tate worship.
It really is, yeah.
No, like they're what. There was an LBC radio and it was young men who like Andrew Tate. What is it you like about him? And they were phoning in going, well, I don't agree with everything he says, but like I do think he has a point about, white men really are, it's much harder for us than it used to. I was just like, you whiny little fucking pussy. I have endless sympathy for every young person going through a difficult time right now. It's fucking hard for everybody. It's almost impossible. It's not because women won't fuck you. They won't fuck you because you're a dick who listens to Andrew Tate. Yeah. In high school, the tater taught us on avoiding you giving a fuck.
No. That's a keeper. That's a fucking keeper. Yeah, because they're whiny little bitches.
Fuck off. It's hard for us all.
Get a fucking wash, read some books, talk to women like they're people. That's it. That's all that's required.
So, like, maybe it's like it's a bit like men used to fight in wars, and you're sitting there crying because what the first girl you spoke to said no, thank you. Get a fucking grip.
Yeah.
It's because it used to be, people used to be embarrassed.
The ones complaining about woke and fucking snowflakes are all the whiniest little cunts in the world.
Yeah, they're like,
all those fucking fragile little fucking
projections.
It's like us, yeah. I mean, anybody that criticizes Trumpy calls them nasty.
Yeah, nasty lady.
Yeah,
but it's like people used to feel embarrassment. People used to feel shame. See, if you were a weirdo who couldn't get laid, that was embarrassing and you wouldn't admit it. See, now it's a fucking political block.